When I did find out that I would be working on Kingsman 2, I was incredibly excited at the idea of animating killer robot dogs. That's pretty much as fun as it gets, I think. Most of the challenges come from that. They were just incredibly complex technical creatures, and they have thousands of moving parts, and it was decided early on that we were gonna, make those real kind of legitimate working machines. So, we made sure that all the pistons are all hooked up and things rotate and the claws bend and fingers splay and all of that kind of thing, that everything was real and it works. I think it gives a huge amount of credibility to the design, and it grounds them in those environments.
Like Beautybot, we had to find a way on set of giving the actors something to look at, something to react against and act against. And so we created a couple of props that we could use. We created both Benny and Jet out of large cardboard cutouts, which we printed big color versions of their side, front and top angles. One of the other things we did was had them build a 3D print of one of the dogs' heads. And we would use that for a couple of scenes that were when maybe they were fighting it and Jet was biting something and they could actually fight against something. We used it just for lighting reference some of the time because it was finished off pretty accurately to what the real dogs were going to look like, the robot dogs. We also had a gentleman in a grey suit that would basically act as the force the actors would react against. And there's one scene specifically where Harry, played by Colin Firth, is being chased down a bowling alley and Jet is right behind him and knocks him over, and he picks up one of the pins and he holds it in his hand, and Jet jumps at him, locks her jaws down on the pin, and her jaws were made of drill bits and chainsaws and things, so it would start to crush through the bowling pin. And so rather than have Colin try to pretend like he's fighting something, we actually used the guy in the grey suit who would reach up with his hand, grab the pin and push and pull it, and so Colin was really fighting against something.
It was kind of a natural thing that the two dogs developed these two different personalities. We just kind of felt that like the bigger, bulkier, the male dog called Benny, who's more of a Rottweiler, he was kind of like the blunt instrument, like more of the hammer, like he was kind of always a bit slow and a bit, but was very strong. And then the female dog Jet, she was always like the most alert, with the ears twitching and watching, and she was more in tune with what was going on. When they sprung into action, she would always be first, and Benny would always like, and it's fairly subtle. In some shots it becomes more evident, but it's just, I don't know, I think as animators we can't resist just adding a little bit of that in there, it's impossible not to. So yeah, that's fun. I think we've really achieved what we set out to do and just made these terrifying, very powerful, formidable characters. And I look at that with a huge amount of pride. And again, that's from all the departments. I mean, the design is fantastic, and the lighting team, again, the dogs instantly, they look seated in those environments without question, I think. And yeah, again, our animation team, I think, the animators did a really, really good job of just bringing them to life, and hopefully they'll terrify people and be a real threat for the Kingsman,